Starting with the full or original MRSA dataset with the 208 rows, we're now going to categorize the states into regions. We know that we have 52 states, including Washington, D.C. and Puerto Rico. And instead of directly comparing specific states, we'd like to compare the infection rate by region. To do this, we're actually going to utilize the U.S. government U.S. regional divisions. And the U.S. government has divided the country into West, Midwest, Northeast, and South. And then within each region, there are subdivisions or subregions. And what we want to look at is whether or not there's differences in the infection rates by these regions or subregions. The website is found on Canvas and also in your worksheet notes. And we will need to create the variable. I'm going to create this in the larger data set so that we can carry it forward when we need it. The way to do this is to create a new column and we'll create a formula. So I'm going to create a new column and we're going to call this first one region. So let's do the large regions first. And then again, we'll create a formula. Now, we could do an if statement. So I could go into conditional and say if, and then do state, and then do equals, and type in each individual state name. But that would take quite some time, and it's not necessary. The best way to do this is with a match statement in JUMP. And so to do a match statement, it's also under conditional. But what you want to do first is put state into the blue box, then hold the shift key, and under conditional choose match. And then you can see that all of my states are already pre-populated. And if you scroll down, it says match. So let's do that again. So put state into the blue box. So select the blue box and select state. Hold the shift key and select match. From there, I can then go through this list from the census and actually type in the state's regions. So I think it's a little bit easier to use this list rather than it is to use the map itself. And so under then, I just want to give the region names. And so let's start with Alaska. And I can either do it by region or I can do it by state. It might be easier to just do it by region and to search for the states. So I can start with Alaska and find Alaska, or I can start with, say, the Northeast region and start with Connecticut is here. Northeast, and remember you don't have to press a close quote. JUMP does that for you. Now that I have Northeast entered here, I can actually copy that and then simply paste it for the remainder of the Northeast. So there is Maine, there is Massachusetts, let's do New Hampshire, Rhode Island, and Vermont. And then we have to go over to the other 3 states that are in the Northeast, and that is New Jersey, New York, and Pennsylvania. So I will continue on entering in the regions. So here I've completed the regions. The only one not on the list was Puerto Rico, and I've gone ahead and put that in the southern region. Anytime that you create variables, you will need to justify the choices that you've made, and say in the methods section of a manuscript, that would be indicated that this was based on the CDC and Puerto Rico was added into the southern region. I'll press OK and press OK, and you can see the regions. So there are regions, and we'll want to make sure or double check, and the way that you can do that is to go to the Tables menu, Summary, and then put the region in, and then put the state in, both in group, and press OK. And this way we could then go back through the list to make sure that we have here, we can see that we have 12 Midwestern states. Here's our Northeastern states and the Southern states and so forth and so on, to make sure that you have those divided up correctly, and press OK. Now we want to do the subregions, and that will be in the same manner. So create a new variable, and we'll call this subregion. Press OK. Go back to column information to do a formula, edit formula, and again, we're going to match the states. So I'm going to select state, so select the blue box and select state, hold the shift key, conditional, match. And then I will go through the list again and put in the subregions. And I will again do this according to finding the state. So my first sub is Division 1 of New England. So I'm going to go New England 1. And again, I can copy that and search for Maine, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Rhode Island, and Vermont. And I will go through here and complete the remainder of the divisions. So as I was doing the subregions, I realized that I didn't want to use numbers. I wanted to use something that was more, had more information in it. So rather than Northeast Division 1, I'm going to say Northeast dash New England. I'm actually going to use the names. And so I'll go back to all my Northeast ones and put in the longer name. And that just means that I don't have to remember which numbers I used. So there's all my Northeast ones. And for Northeast 2, it's actually called Mid-Atlantic. So I can go in here and type Mid-Atlantic. And I can go ahead and replace all 3 of my Northeast 2s, and then I will continue on with my Midwest, South, and Western regions. For Puerto Rico, I'm going to align it next to the region, the South Atlantic region that contains Florida. Also, what I found very interesting, that Delaware was considered in the southern region by the CDC. I'm not sure anybody from Delaware would consider them themselves to be in a southern region, but that's okay. I'm sure there was a justification for this. And so since we want to be able to compare this to other regional information at some point, we'll go ahead and stick with the CDC regions for that. Excuse me, we'll go ahead and stick with the US, the census regions for that. Okay, so I've completed the sub-regions or the divisions. It's important to note that even though we know that North Dakota and South Dakota don't have data for the percent responses for all 4 years, if in the future we add additional years to this, we don't want to have to recreate this formula. And so that's another reason I didn't do an if-then-else statement. I went ahead and did the matching. So that we can have them appropriate regions and subregions for that data. So press OK, and then press OK, and then let's go ahead and double check our subregions and our states, and you'd want to validate this against your list. And if you're satisfied, then go ahead and save your data. And now we need to split the data again. I know that we could have done this originally and then split the data and had the same split data set. But this gives you more practice on splitting the data because we want the years as columns for our paired tests. So again, go back to tables, split. We want to split the percent resistant. We want to split it by year. And now we want our region, our subregion, and our state all by in the group area. We're going to go ahead and drop the remainder of the columns and press OK. And now this looks very similar to our other split data, only now we have our regions and our subregions listed as well as our years. And you could go ahead and then create difference scores for those. And you, or you could actually look at individual year data here as well. So I'm going to go ahead and save this as MRSA regions. Press OK, and then we'll work with this data when we look at paired tests by region or subregion, and then you could work with this data if we wanted to compare region or subregion within an individual year. And that will be in future videos.